A 4-year-old boy slips into the zoo's gorilla habitat and over a moat wall. Suddenly, Harambe, a 17-year-old 400-pound gorilla, approaches the boy. His mother watches in horror.
The gorilla exhibit here remains closed, but I wanted to give you an idea of the height of that barrier that the child climbed over. This is a baby gate. The barrier was about this high, 3 feet tall.
You guys are parents. I've got 2 kids. I've turned around a supermarket and I couldn't find my kids, or in a department store. With that said, whenever we're in a public or we're in a place where there are wild animals, remember, a zoo, this is not Disney World and animatronics. These are wild creatures. Common sense is very important. We need to be responsible for our children.
I think it's a very tough call. It was amazing because there were moments with the gorilla, the way he held that child, it was almost like a mother holding a baby. Looked so beautiful and calm. And there were moments where it looked pretty dangerous.
This child was being dragged around. His head was banging on concrete. This was not a gentle thing. The child was at risk. We're very fortunate that he's okay.
That mother and father had to be petrified. They had to be scared to death. The public around them had to be mortified. Everybody was total loss because, my God, they didn't know who he was. This beast had this baby.
Harambe is one of our most magnificent animals. He's a critically endangered species. We're one of the key players in gorilla captive breeding and conservation, and so it's a big loss.
He was in a situation where there's this strange thing here that I don't know what do I do? Do I fight it? Do I love it? Do I run from it? What do I do?
These animals weren't designed to be here, and there's no amount of smoke and mirrors that the zoo can put on that to change it. Gorillas come from Africa, not Ohio.
We 100% support the Cincinnati Zoo's decision. As you said, it was an animal that we loaned to them. You can't take chances with an animal like that. At the end of the day, there's no single animal life that is more important than that of a human life, especially a child.
Welcome back. I'm John Bachman in for Ed Berliner. Do you agree with that last statement, that there is no animal life worth that of a child? Just shocking how much reaction there has been over the last few days to the killing of this 450-pound silverback gorilla at the Cincinnati Zoo. Zoo officials, again, were forced to put the animal down. They shot him after that young child got past the barrier, was down there in that moat-looking thing with the gorilla being dragged around. We want to get your thoughts on this. Do you have any thoughts on this? Who is at fault? Is it the zoo? Is it the parents? Weigh in. The phone number, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Again, 1-877-NEWSMAX. We have Pam joining us from Cody, Wyoming. Pam, you think the parents are to blame. Tell us why.
Yes, I do, because I think when you're in that kind of a situation, put a leash on your children that are young like that when they can get into these situations. I just think it's bullcrap. I think the whole thing it could have been avoided.
Yeah, Pam, are you a parent? Do we still have Pam?
No, I'm not. Not of children, no.
What did you think about what Jeff Corrin, I believe is his name, said? Look, I'm a parent. I've turned my back, and my child has gone missing for a few minutes in the grocery store. As a parent, it can be difficult. Keep in mind, it's never happened to me at the zoo before, but it's hard. Is it right to judge these parents?
I think so. When you're there at a wild exhibit, come on, really? It's hardly a grocery store.
Fair point. Fair point. Do you think the parents should be punished legally?
Well, yes, I do. Well, I don't know. I don't know what they would be charged with. I mean,
child neglect. I think you could find something. I do believe the prosecutor or the police in Cincinnati are saying that they are not looking at any criminal charges. But, the kid got hurt. He got a concussion. He got scraped up. You could maybe make a case for child neglect. I'm not an attorney. I guess the prosecutors decided against that. But some people say the parents should be charged.
Well, I think maybe that was justice enough, I mean, the child was injured, but, thankfully he wasn't killed.
Yes, I think that's one thing we can all agree on. All right, let's get to Niles, who is joining us from Kimberly, Idaho. Hello. Niles, you say the zoo took the necessary steps. Tell us why.
Look, zoo personnel under what's the word I want?
The zoo personnel?
They have their their protocols to follow.
Right, and I believe if I read correctly that they drill for these types of events, and this went according to the drill. They did what they had to do.
You know, when you start to try to place blame in a situation like this, the only thing you create are hard feelings.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about these animal rights activists? I mean, that guy made that snarky comment about gorillas coming from Africa, not from Ohio. You know, some folks would argue that they should have left this child in there with the gorilla to save the gorilla's life. Do you think that, those people are nuts?
There's a lot of groups out there that take a situation like this and try to raise money on it.
Yeah.
So I discount what they have to say.
That's a very good point to bring up. Just remember, everybody else out there, a lot of times people who draw attention to these types of things are looking for fundraising opportunities, including our elected officials. Thank you very much for your call, Niles. Let's bring in Brian, calling us from Tacoma, Washington. We're going to switch topics and talk about Edward Snowden. Brian, you think Snowden should be pardoned. Tell me why. Change my mind.
I think he should. He brought a lot of things out that the government was doing illegally, spying on Americans, and we need to know about it and get it stopped. Now, some of the things he did that we don't know about are probably wrong, but as far as letting the information about us knowing about that, I think he should be pardoned on that.
What do you think about the fact that he took off, fled this country, went to China, probably talked to some Chinese officials, then left China and went to Russia, where he is now a guest of Vladimir Putin, and probably sharing lots of information maybe with our Russian, I don't want to say allies, but the Kremlin and Putin's ex-KGB folks. Do you think there's any kind of corroboration going on between Snowden and our enemies?
Well, if there is, he does need to be charged for that, but as far as taking off, what choice did he have? Our government, he may have been putting his
He could have stayed here. He could have stayed here and faced the music. I mean, there's precedent here. There's the Pentagon Papers. There's other examples of whistleblowers who stick around to face the music. He could have found somebody in the media that maybe he trusted and stayed anonymous, as was the case with Deep Throat. I believe today is actually an anniversary of Felt coming out publicly after he released his own identity. There are options here other than running to the arms of two of our adversaries, China and Russia.
Oh, yeah, there's always options to do, but what's done is done, and if he hasn't given any of our information to our enemies, I think he should be pardoned. If he's done that to our enemies, he has to face that, too.
Well, earlier we talked about, that he does face charges. Eric Holder, after saying that he did a public service, and the White House today said that he should come home and face the music, face the criminal charges. Do you feel like a jury in this country or a court of law would give him a fair trial and perhaps let him off the hook?
I don't know. I doubt that because he's already violated his oath of silence with that, so they've got him on that completely. But that's a slippery slope there.
Yeah, well, it is a slippery slope. All right, thanks for your call, Brian. Great to talk to you. Let's welcome in Wallace. Wallace is calling us from Prattville, Alabama. We're going back to the gorilla. You think it should not have been shot, Wallace. Tell me why.
No, I do think it should have been shot. But
okay.
Did they use tranquilizers? Because a zoo, having that many dangerous animals, would have tranquilizers.
I believe what the zookeeper said was that they couldn't risk it. It takes time, upwards of 10 minutes. Sometimes these animals can become groggy, can become confused, and that was too much time where the gorilla still could have done some damage to the child. They took the most immediate action to resolve the situation. I believe that's what the zookeeper said. So I don't think tranquilization was an option here.
All right, see, that makes sense. I mean, I was just wondering because I never heard anything about it being spoken anywhere. This is like they just shot it.
Yeah, I mean, the zookeeper.
The non-lethal ability, they should. If they didn't, then how undersupplied are the zoos? But I do agree with that. I mean, that's understandable. So I do agree with that with a child being in danger, I believe that they made a good call. In fact, that it would take too long for it to go to sleep, pass out.
All right, well,
I do agree with that. I just didn't know if they had deployed tranquilizer at first or not.
Yeah, I don't think the tranquilizer was an option in this case. Otherwise, they certainly would have done it. It's a tragedy that this animal died. I think, though, I'm going to agree with Donald Trump and so many others. You got to save the kid's life over the gorilla's life every single time. I love animals. It's a shame to see a beautiful creature like this gorilla encaged in a zoo. I mean, I'll be honest with you, conflicted. I love going to the zoo. I love seeing these animals. I wonder how many people would actually get to see these majestic animals but for these zoos. But this is a case of what can go wrong, and a good reminder for all of us. All right, we got more to come here on the Hard Line. Rick Unger is going to be here with us in just a few moments. We'll talk more about Trump, third-party runs, and a lot more. Stick around.